Welcome to Okaloosa Today, local news and information. Connecting the communities of Fort Beach, Destin, and Okaloosa County.
Welcome to Okaloosa Today on Cox. This is your monthly look at the city of Destin, Fort Walton Beach, and Okaloosa County. I'm Doug Rayner with the city of Destin, and joining me today on Destin's segment is Destin's mayor, Mel Ponder. Mel Ponder has been a mayor for about a year, right at a year actually.
Absolutely.
We had you on the show about a year ago to talk about your vision and what you expected, and now that you've been through a season, a year, you gave a State of the City address. You told us about the projects that took place last year, and part of our goal is to recap some of that today, and also to find out, what do you think? What happened? Was it what you expected, and are we moving in the direction you think we need to go in?
Yeah, that's a great question, obviously, Doug. I'm very thankful and humbled and honored to serve as mayor. I said that a year ago. It's kind of hard being mayor of the city of Destin, coming behind a mayor Sam Severs, a mayor Craig Barker, and even a mayor Ken Beard. The ones that I do know that laid an amazing foundation for which they plowed the ground that makes it a lot easier for me to walk through. But the first year was just a joy for me and my family. Obviously I skint my knee here and there, but definitely want to get back up, dust off, and do the best I can to really just maintain the values of our community, stay intact. And so, this past year, having a chance to recap some of our victories, we achieved a lot in 2014 as a community. We were hit with a lot, but I felt we achieved a lot. And for me, I kind of look at it, and I said this in my State of the City, is I believe that we as a community, looking back in history, our history will be recorded as a community for what we do with what's been given to us. And so I'm often challenged as mayor, looking back of the major victories we've had as a community, and even some of the challenges we've had. But I'm always trying to refine my leadership in the community to what we can do to honor the values and heritage of our city. And so when I look at things like where Destin's often quoted, as in the top magazines in the Southeast as the #1 beach town. I think USA Today and World Report has us in the #1 beach in Florida, #7 in America. Southern Living has had us as the best family beach destination for 14 years, I believe, in a row. Yahoo always ranks us up high. Travelocity, all these ones say Destin's a great place to go. And I love that, and it's something that we can kind of hang our hat on a little bit to a degree, but I'm always challenging myself with, if we're all those things, then what are we doing, as a community? How is our history being recorded? So I always like to put a comma on the end of those statements, and hey, #1 beach town in Florida, comma, best family experience, beach experience, comma, and then I pose myself with a question saying, now what? If we're the top beach destination in Florida, now what? What opportunity are we giving ourselves as a community to celebrate those that come literally from 8, 10, 12 hours or more away to our city, of all places they chose Destin to come to? How are we giving thanks to them? How are we being honorable as a community? So I want to make sure we don't lose that fire, that passion as a city that has a lot of its roots in tourism, but at the same time being really cautious that we are, for the time as mayor or as us as citizens in the city, what are we recording in our history books, and making sure we're giving honor where honor is due.
And you have some really good points to make. You did that at your State of the City as part of your mantra as the mayor now. We're going to talk about those a little later in the show, because that all folds into what took place last year.
Sure.
You mentioned leadership. The council you're working with has done a great job. City managers Greg Kisela is doing a great job. Tell us about our leadership a little bit.
Absolutely. Well, last March, as many know that are watching, that we had an election, and very thankfully we brought in some new faces to council. Preble Ramswell's a new councilwoman that joined. She's done an outstanding job so far, showing amazing leadership. Rodney Braden come on, a man that's not afraid to ask some questions that need to get resolved. Love that about him. And Jim Foreman was reelected as a council member, so we have a great addition. Of course, I came on board as mayor, so which is an amazing honor. And you mentioned Greg Kisela, our former city manager we had before him, did an amazing job getting us to where we need to go, but she took Marion Eustick took a position out west, which allowed an open door for us to bring Greg back in. And I kind of kid around, as much as I love Greg, I always say, well, the benefit of getting Greg is getting his wife Lucy back in town. And so it's been a joy to have them come back in. He's just like an old glove. He kind of slipped right in, picking up back up where he left off. But his leadership is, I believe, at a whole nother level. Does some amazing work so far, and already has positioned the city for where we need to go ahead. So it's a real honor to have him back as city manager, and I'm looking forward to seeing what he does with us as a community. When he came back on, just before he came back on, unfortunately last year, we had the floods. His historic rainfall in our city, really throughout Northwest Florida. A lot of people were hurting and crying out, but I felt our city staff, what an amazing job. They jumped right into it. We went throughout the city. We put out as many fires as we could in terms of flooding for water coming up into homes, getting water pumped back out into the runoff areas. City staff did an A-plus effort in that. Where things could have gone against us, they didn't. They kind of worked to our favor. Despite not winning every victory out there, we did as best we could, and so the staff just did an amazing job when we were given something that was pretty devastating.
And that's hard to talk about as a highlight of the year because it was devastating, as you said. That's the right word. But I think what you mentioned is that the togetherness, the unity that the city showed. The staff worked hard. I mean, our guys were working at midnight, 24 hours a day for several days, and that showed just a resilience in our staff and in the community banding together to show what Destin really is.
Absolutely, neighbor looking after neighbor, friend after friend, business colleague after business colleague, and that to me is a definition of our city. I think when people look at us and say, "What are you known for?" I always kind of say, I think the strongest thing we're known for is family. And so when the cities came and did what they could, like you said, 24/7, they were on the clock, pumping water, helping people out. It was the in-between moments that neighbors helped neighbors, and really just just helped for the ones that were hurting, and just kind of jumped in. And I thought it was just an amazing honor as mayor to see that happen.
And it sure was. Let's talk about something a little more fun than that. We had, sports tourism is growing in our community.
Love it.
Our direct department does a great job. They work to bring these tournaments in, and it's also not a hard sell because we live in paradise, and people want to come here to play tournaments because they can stay in vacation and enjoy our beaches and our shopping. But you mentioned in the State of the City address a tournament that we saw for the second time, I think, in a row. But
and I think the acronym is the USSAA. It's a Youth World Series baseball tournament. Last year during the summer, I mean, Lance Johnson, an amazing leader we have heading it up for us. I mean, thinking proactively in terms of the assets we have as a community, and especially the Morgan Sports Center, all the ball fields down there, how can we best utilize them to really not only take care of our citizens as we should, but also how can we position that so that other people can come to our city and partake. And he put together this tournament. I know he had an outside person as helping coordinate everything, but we brought in, if I remember correctly, 90 teams in one tournament, 87 of which were outside of our area. So that already we're bringing in a number of players, families, fans, all coming to the city of Destin, converging for a weekend. Economic impact for that one tournament alone, I've heard various numbers, but around $1.5 million, just that one tournament alone. And that's just one thing that Lance is pressing into. He's looking at that, lacrosse, children's soccer, youth soccer, amazing opportunities that we have to bring people from outside our area to come and enjoy the benefits we have inside our area.
That's right. So, we're not just for locals to. I mean, we have great local recreation, but outside of the local aspect, we have people coming in here all the time, and that is an economic benefit. It helps us in a lot of ways, and again, like as you mentioned before, it is a phenomenal impact to our community.
Big time. Yep, we need to celebrate that for sure, and it's an opportunity going ahead as well.
And this last year we partnered with some other groups. I know you've been working with the TDD here recently on some initiatives that will take us into 15, but last year we had a stakeholders meeting that they participated in. Tell us a little bit about that one.
I love the stakeholder meeting, and again, that's some of the leadership that Greg Kisela brought to the table. Is immediately we recognized that we're not, there's some areas we need to improve on without question as a community, and he said we can piecemeal it and go one-on-one, or we can have an afternoon of a stakeholders and bring everybody to the table. And what excited me about being just a spectator in the room that day is I looked across the room and thought, man, there's enough wisdom in this room that we could really craft and shape and really fix a lot of our problems with just the minds in that room. I believe this, that as much as I celebrate individual ones who've done great achievements in our community, I believe we as a community can really have the mind of our community and where we go. And that afternoon alone, we identified some of the things like code enforcement. hey, we have policies in the book. We just weren't enforcing some of the things we had in place. Some of the trash pickup, some of the how we work with the TDC. You mentioned that, the TDD, in terms of as a community, what are our hoteliers, what are our condominium owners, what are our associations, who do we want to market to? What kind of caliber of guests do we want? So we were able to work with them. The sheriff's department was there that day. We got an update from Captain Payco about, this is what we're currently facing as a community. Some of our arrests, the hours of the night, things of that nature. I mean, information became such a key to be used that day, but it was the community coming together as community stakeholders to try to decide what was best for the city.
That's right.
A great day.
That's right. And as far as partners go, even the Chamber of Commerce was a part of that day.
Absolutely.
Another thing that we partnered with them on is to restore the Primrose and the old post office that's just fallen in disrepair. It started really in December, so late last year. But that's just an example of our community rallying together. That's brother helping brother is what that is.
Well, Shane Moody, what a gift we have in his leadership at the Chamber already. And he, time and time again, is always at our meetings, always extending a helping hand. Well, he always reaches out with their Destin Forward class to find a community project. Well, thankfully, they chose the city, restoring the Primrose, restoring the post office, and they did it. They provided the labor, we provided the need, and it was an amazing partnership. But that right there alone shows the power of what two or more can do together when they come to really honor a need in the community, and how far it can go when they work together. So yeah, you're right. That's
exactly right. And as a matter of fact, that project will culminate in the first weekend in May. I believe it's May 2nd at Founders Day, and we will do a christening of the Primrose. Primrose, it'll be moved across the street. We've done a couple of shows on that here, but again, just it shows what our community does when it comes together.
That's right.
And I think that's really what last year was all about. We had a lot of projects, a lot of things going on. We have some that have pushed through this year. Kelly Street's a big one. Noriega Point stabilization last year. We had the T-groin repaired. But it really shows that when something needs to happen, this community comes together.
Absolutely. Yep. And you mentioned Noriega Point. That's a big one. As many, our community know that the heritage and history of that point alone is vital to our fishing fleet and those that kind of come in and out of the harbor. And last year, thankfully, we started what will ultimately be a rehardening project for that. We had to start with phase 1, which we achieved last year. We'll be rolling in this fall to what I'll call phase 2, but it's phase 1 of the DEP project, where they'll actually be hardening or bringing more sand to Noriega Point. Then phase 3 will go on to what goes on top of it. But key things that are core to our community that are now beginning to happen, and so that's exciting to see those things come to fruition.
Right. A lot of things are coming to fruition now, but some people don't realize how this took many years to plan. So when there was a dead time, when people said nothing was getting done, actually all the legwork to make these projects happen was taking place, and we're just getting to that point where you're going to see it now.
Well, a lot of the hat goes off to Mayor Severs. I mean, this hardening project really was an initiative that really could have gone either way, but because of her leadership to go to Tallahassee and work with some leaders over there in the DEP is why we're getting that project done. And so you're right, a lot of the things that were done prior to even my coming on board, to some of the legwork and plowing, we now get the honor of kind of seeing them come to pass. And so that's one of the projects right there in Kelly Street. You mentioned that project is just about finished. That's going to be a huge, it's going to be beautiful when it's done. It's going to be a blessing is what it is.
We will cut the ribbon on that very soon. I won't say a date. You don't ever want to do that, but we will cut it very soon, because that project is important to the core of our city in a lot of different ways. So, and thanks for talking about our former Mayor Severs and the staff that have pushed all these projects through. That's a really big deal.
Big time, absolutely.
Let's circle back to where we kind of started, which was your vision for the city, and you mentioned hospitality. That's a big deal. I know that's part of your message. Let's explain a little bit of that. Where are we going with hospitality?
Hospitality. Well, if you read, and this is kind of just fun, I had the fun that night, is if you came into a city, any city, hypothetically, I mean, obviously we're in Destin, so I'll highlight that, but everybody's got a city limit sign, and say you're coming into the city of Destin and it said Destin city limits. Well, normally, okay, that's good. If I'm here on vacation, I'm coming from out of town, I'm in the city, I got that. But if there's another tagline, and I'm not trying to replace our World's Luckiest Fishing Village at all. I'm just trying to release something that people can kind of see themselves embracing. And I thought, well, what if we had a tagline, again, just out of the box thinking, that said City of Hospitality? Now, I don't know about you, but any guest coming into a city, and it could be San Antonio, Knoxville, Tennessee, Gatlinburg, wherever city they go to, if they saw a tagline on the outside coming into the city that said City of Hospitality, that right there alone would change your expectation of what you're going to experience in that city or that community that you're visiting. Like, wow, if they're talking about city of hospitality, I bet I'm going to be treated differently. Well, what's funny is you mentioned that. I did the research on the definitions, and hospitality, what it says is the friendly and generous reception and entertainment of guests, visitors, or strangers, which makes sense. We do all that. It's the business of housing or entertaining visitors. Again, makes sense. Hoteliers, hospitality, no problem. The activity of providing food, drinks, etc. for people who are the guests or customers of our organization. Well, yeah, restaurants, I get that. The sad part is most people think that's hospitality, is how well they're greeted when they check into the hotel or get waited on in a restaurant. But the definitions here, the really hospitality means it's the point of connection between the guest and the host. It's the moment of truth, as Dr. Holdenack from UWF says. But none of these definitions that jumped out to me say it has to be between a local person and an out-of-town guest. It's just how we treat each other.
Right.
And so my whole thought on the hospitality piece coming on the heels of family and honor, two things I kind of laid the groundwork for before, is that hospitality is a term that not only we can embrace because that's our culture already. We're in the tourism industry, a big economic generator for our city. I think the TDC director, Ed Schrader, said it's over a $600 million economic impact to our city. That's one piece of the puzzle, that we can honor and celebrate the guests coming in with great hospitality. The other piece is once they leave, how do we treat each other? When you go into the convenience store, or to the restaurant, or the hotel, how are we honoring the people that live here already? I think it's a way of life. I think hospitality is a word not only is good for the guests coming in from out of town, but it's also good for how we treat our neighbors.
That's right. Quality of life is important in a lot of ways, and it stretches across the employers and employees, but it gets into the roots of our city. And you're right. You're right. It's very important. It sounds like that's the right way to move things.
Well, Destin, as we've said many times, the heritage of our city is really family. We started with families, founding families that came in. That's how we've treated each other from the fishing fleet on throughout the whole community. And this is just a furtherance of honoring that tradition we have, is looking out for each other, celebrating the guests. We got to celebrate them, but then what do we do the other times when they're not here? Is we got to be family, and that's a way to do it.
That's right. You have some 5 values that you've rolled out, and we have a shot of those, so we can see family, hospitality, honor, opportunity, and generations. You're forecasting a big picture, and that's really nice to see. And I think that all the things that we did last year and all the things that we're going to do have something to do with those 5 values. I think that they can play into the way we do things, and then our projects can reflect those as well.
Absolutely. Well, family and honor I've hit on before, and those are key, I think, core and foundational. Those give us, those 5 things, I believe, to me, give us a foundation and a set of lenses that what we look through not only is leadership from your perspective and Greg's perspective from a city, but us as policy decision makers for the community. It's a foundation that's solid. It honors our heritage. It honors where we are now, but also as a lens that where we go through, we can look through that and see where we're going. But family, honor, hospitality, we hit on. Opportunity is important, because I want it to be us as a community to, like the Economic Development Tax Abatement Program, E-Date, the Restore Act coming up right now. There's opportunities we have. Sports tourism, we talked about that. Other businesses that may be a great fit for our community. How do we position ourselves to be a great fit and celebrate the ones that we have to celebrate? And that's opportunities for us and our children. Generations is important to me, because I've got 3 kids, 20, 18, and 10. And what are we doing in our city? It's easy to get caught up in what about us and our generational line. It's easy. But what are we doing to create an atmosphere in our city so that our kids are so drawn to our community that whether they go away to school or even work somewhere else, that there's something about our city that they want to come back to? What are we doing to be a generational blessing to our kids, that we celebrate not only what we're doing now, but for the days ahead, so that they want to stay, raise a family here, earn their living here, and come back if they do move away? So these are 5 core values that are important to me, that the lenses that I'll be looking through as a community.
Sounds like you hit the nail on the head with all those, and we really appreciate your leadership and your foresight and your leadership as we move through these times with a lot of projects going on. Mel, it's always an honor to have you here. It's a joy. Thank you for your information.
I'm honored, Doug. Thank you very much.
Want to make sure you stay tuned for the City of Fort Walton Beach next. If you'd like to see this full presentation, you can check out our YouTube channel and go to cityofdestin.com. We'll see you next time.